So hello, peace be upon you. Uh, Welcome to another episode of the Happiness Revolution, where I talk about age-old wisdom that will change your life easily, make a difference to your life, and then when you feel that difference, you begin to realize a revolution is possible, a happiness revolution, where people can live together happier in a happier way and treat the environment in a better way, a more sustainable way, etc., etc. So this little chat, I'm going to try to keep it short, is about believing the revolution can happen. When I say believing, it's more like realizing the revolution will happen. It will happen, but it will take a bit of effort, just like any old business venture. If you don't make that business succeed or create that thing, somebody else will, because it's the natural state or order of things. You see, to keep it short, we are spiritual beings. So, and we love connection, we love spiritual stuff that you can't measure in materialistic ways. And you've already seen that we buy stuff and it doesn't quite make us happy. But there's all these tiny things that do, and that's spirituality. These tiny things like being, giving something small to somebody and it makes us happy. There's a little thing I talked about that the only way people seem to find happiness through buying stuff is by buying stuff for other people, etc., etc. That's spirituality. It's that weird stuff. It's that counter-intuitive stuff. Okay, that's what you find about these wisdom tips. They kind of they look like they don't do anything, and if we ignore them for a while, we begin to realize they're really important. Like being nice to your neighbors and stuff like that. It's like, be nice to your neighbors. What do I need to do that for? That's what materialism does. Makes you really short-sighted. Okay? And because we've had so much materialism, we're kind of rejecting it. We're just kind of vomiting it out and realizing it doesn't really do stuff for you. It doesn't really make you happy like it should. So, how can we start believing in the revolution? We know we kind of need it. We do need it, right? But how can you realize that it will happen? And I've talked about this before, so I'm trying to get on with this. I've talked about it because it's part of the 4 steps to the happiness revolution. Those 4 steps are also the 4 steps to your personal happiness. So let's go through them. These are sort of 4 steps of psychological awareness of what's happening and what will happen, which is a revolution. The first step is that you start wishing peace for people from within your heart. That is a kind of forced awakening within yourself. Because before that, you're kind of living life with blinkers on. It is materialistic blinkered life. Yeah, where you're pushing forward, trying to get stuff, and when you get that stuff, you realize it doesn't make you happy, and you keep going round and round like a crazy, guinea pig going around, that wheel that they go on. Yeah, just going round and round and round. You don't even realize it, and getting nowhere. That is. Okay. So when you start wishing peace from within your heart to people around you, you start triggering stuff within yourself, and awareness. It's a weird way of doing it, but that's the way it works. These are the age-old spiritual ideas that have been tried and tested for thousands of years. So you start wishing peace for people within your heart when you meet everybody, all the strangers. And what happens is, you start really wishing them well, because you start realizing their humanity, which materialism stops you from. And you start realizing the happiness it gives you, which materialism stops you from realizing. And you start realizing the stuff that really makes you happy. And then you start having love for people. So you start having love for strangers, not like this fake love, we fall in love, but a kind of meaningful, deep love that you kind of go, yeah, we're all connected, and they're all my brothers and sisters, everybody. They're not all my enemies or my competitors in this materialistic race. And yeah, and I like to point out something that it's kind of a natural realization that people are beginning to have. I keep talking about Russell Brand, and he's put out this book now. He's written. I don't totally agree with everything he's saying, but he's kind of realized that by the title of his book, which is called Revolution, but if you look at it, if you just Google it up, you see they turned one of the letters around and it says love kind of backwards. Okay? And that kind of implies a revolution is about love. And it's true. When you have love, you start connecting between people and you start becoming more open-minded and more able to absorb truth. Like the truth that we need oneness, we need unity, not just to have the revolution, but that's how we are. We don't naturally want to be racist and all these things. Racism is from this ugly idea that, you know, from a dark side of us, where we lie to ourselves constantly that we are better than the other person because of the color of our skin, which doesn't make sense, right? So stuff like that, because, you know, if you look at the logic, kind of you know, biologically we're pretty much the same. You know, there's only a small difference in pigmentation, which doesn't tell you you're better than the other person, does not based on any sort of reality, etc., etc. So anyway, love opens your mind to truth. But when you don't have love, just to remind you, we do lots of dumb things, like we sit on trains and we accept sort of dumb realities, that this is the way things are, that we sit on a train and nobody should talk to each other, when we actually would like to talk to the other person on the train, rather than, you know, have this weird thing we're not allowed to look at each other. You know, if you've been in a big city, you know what I'm talking about. You sit on public transport, nobody's allowed to look at each other. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to finish this video, and so love opens you to a reality and all sorts of truths. But when you have hate, you become dumb and you lie to yourself. You lie to yourself to stay in this materialistic way of life. So when you don't do that, you start accepting truths. And one of the big truth that you have to start accepting is that God exists. Okay? I'm going to quickly open this up to you. I'm going to quickly explain this. We are incredibly complicated beings. Look at us as like the most amazing robots ever, right? And then there's loads of us, there's loads of human beings, but there's loads of all these other creatures, and they all serve a purpose, they all fit in with each other, right? Okay, they're not just random machines that they do stuff, yeah? They seem to be designed to do stuff, okay? And to keep it simple, incredibly complex, and not, you know, we are incredibly complex, so that means the chances are we weren't made by accident. So just like your TV wasn't made by accident, even less, far, trillion times less likely, literally trillions of times, I mean that's underestimating, trillions of times less likely is that we were made by accident. So it's very unreasonable to believe that we were we happened by mistake. Our creation happened by mistake. You see, when you have love in your heart, you begin to realize things. You become more open-minded to truth that will benefit humanity. And when you realize, yeah, God must exist, okay, then you begin to realize our oneness, and we begin to realize so many other truths, become open to truths. Yeah, but when you don't, you become more negative, and you become selfish. You don't realize the benefit of helping each other and oneness and all these spiritual values that change your life. So then, when you are open to the idea that God exists, then you'll be able to see that God helps you in your daily life. There is a living God that has been taught throughout the ages. And I suppose that's the hard bit. Yeah? So you need to go through the 4 steps, which are having peace wishing peace for each other, which takes you to happiness, which takes you to belief. Happiness opens you up to truth, which takes you to belief, and belief leads to the revolution. So we need to have that belief, which is the step before, that will make sure that we don't stop, because the revolution will be difficult. The big revolution will be difficult. Even the small revolution within yourself will be difficult to some extent. Well, the first steps are really easy. You know, you do small things, like I say, and they will change your life. And they're easy, but even then, they're really a little bit hard, because sometimes you watch a video and you say, I can't bother to do that. You know? I suppose. Anyway, I can go on and on. But what I'm trying to say is, there is a God to round up. You got to stop realizing that. Stop lying to yourself that there isn't. And then you stop behaving like there is God, and when you start realizing God exists, and say, God, help me in my daily life, you will see that definitely over and over again in a strange, weird way. And people, I could tell you stories who kind of made out they're atheists, and then they've had experiences like God exists and stuff like that. And you will in your daily life, easy peasy. Try it out, but you need to go through those steps to start realizing God exists. Thank you for watching.